Well, welcome back everyone. This is the messed up one that I was working on before. It's that weird fall piece that didn't really turn out the right way. I thought I was going to repaint over it. Now, the other day I was painting and experimenting and I didn't realize I wasn't recording when I actually put all this black on this one, because this painting's actually already been lacquered and everything. I just want to see if it would stick, but I used way too much black, so this is where we're at right now. We're going to repaint over this one and get it staged for another piece of the panel project. Now, I'd like to say this right now while I'm recording, the beginning of this. There are going to be some weird kind of like janky cuts. That's because there's a lot of excess video that didn't need to be there. Basically this. Blending a lot of colors, trying to get it right, and me kind of fighting with the black and the blue over the the varnish or lacquer, and then trying to get the white highlights at the bottom to fade up into the blue, which the blue fade into the black. So I was having some issues. So yeah, there was a lot of cutout. And plus I want to try to keep these videos between like 10 and 15 minutes. I mean, this one's still over, but that's just because I messed up at the end, and you'll see why. So I guess one thing I can say about this video is it does go to show that you can recycle old canvases. I mean, it is just paint over paint, but in this case it's actually paint over varnish or lacquer that's on top of other paint. But it actually took pretty well. I'm quite surprised by that. I mean, it is liquid paint going on top of just a smooth surface, but it actually just it worked. I'm actually surprised that it didn't just like wipe off. Because I did try that off screen. Let's just try wiping some of the paint off. It kind of smears, but it doesn't really come off. So, oh, and here, like the other videos, I'm actually trying to get the white blend at the bottom in before I do like the landscape piece and the whole point of the painting. In the end, it doesn't really matter because I have to do it again, but this is my attempt at not having to do that at the end. And right about in here is when it finally started to look right. Like the other ones, like this fade up from a bluish gray to blue to black finally. Just adding a little bit more in there. And unlike the last video, I actually have this on video finally. Although I'm splattered too much again, like the last one, but I'll have to work on just maybe aiming the actual toothbrush a little bit better, and I'll be able to get it right. And here I'm starting to actually do the landscape piece of the soil or the ground that's floating up and connected with all the roots and everything, just like the last videos. This one I wanted to just do a normal just green tree because none of the other paintings just had that besides the previous video, which was the aspen. In this case I wanted to do like an oak tree, just because oak trees, at least from the photos I've seen just before doing the video, they're very symmetrical, like big strong trunk, and then kind of like the branches and leaves just kind of go out in the same direction in all directions. I mean, you'll see that later on when I start doing the actual tree and the branches and the leaves. It kind of looks symmetrical, almost to the point of maybe not really looking right, but you be the judge. And right about here, I'm trying to figure out why I'm getting so much glare. I mean, the sun was up, but the shades were drawn, and I had a light going, but I still could not, for the life of me, get rid of all this weird glare on the actual wet paint and then the already dried paint. So I have to figure out how to still do that. I mean, I'm still just kind of doing this in my back room on my desk with all my tools surrounding it, and right next to a window. So I have to really figure that out, but I'm working on it. As I progress, it'll get better. And here I begin doing the oak trunk and branches. You see, this one's actually quite thick, and then I actually go pretty high up on the canvas, unlike some of the other ones, which were a little bit lower, which I have to remind myself not to go so high, because then I risk the leaves reaching the edges of the actual canvas, and that's not what I want. Then I have to repaint the whole thing, and I don't want to go through that again, because that's the whole, well, one of the points of this particular video is to show that you can actually do that, and you'll turn out a decent product at the end of it. And here I'm going to start with this dark green. It'll go to my standard green color, and then I'll throw some yellow in there to do the highlights. And yeah, just watch. Just the simple dab technique. I'm using the same brush I usually use for this. It's just one of those kiddie brushes that doesn't really do anything besides this. I mean, at least for me. I don't use these brushes for anything else. They're really loose, I guess round brushes is what you call them. I'm not really sure on that one. If someone has a better name for them, or an actual name for those, I'd appreciate it if you tell me. Obviously, I've been using my heat gun this entire time because I want to make sure this thing is dried out before I put any more paint on, because obviously it'll smear and then mix together, and that's not what I want when I'm trying to get highlights and darks. And here's the standard green, and basically just the same technique for all the leaves. And I'll say this, like I said in my last videos, if you're trying to paint a dark color on a dark background, you really need to work on getting the highlights in there to bring out the shape of whatever you're painting. In this case, it's a dark green, which kind of almost blends in. I mean, you can still see it, but you really want to bring up the lighter greens. I swear I'm going to get this glare out of here. I mean, I was fighting with it the entire time, so with me raising it up to try to find a better position for it, but it really didn't help at all, so I just left it. Here comes the yellow blend. Just a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow. For acrylics, you have to remember that when it dries, the color's different when it dries out. It's very vibrant when it's red, or when it's wet. Sorry, not red. But when it dries, it kind of goes to almost a bland, kind of muted color. That's one of the reasons why I do a lot of layering when I'm doing something like this. And I'll try to dry it out before I put on the next layer to see if it actually stuck. If it didn't, then I have to put another layer of another brighter color on to try to bring out a little bit more of the highlight or the contrast of the colors. It's not like oil paint where it kind of just stays the same color indefinitely. I mean, I'm not an oil paint artist, whatever you call it. I don't know if there's a particular term for that. If there is, hey, let me know. Just comment section down below. But I don't really work with paints because I'm not that good yet. I'd rather work with something that just dries out and I don't have to worry about it. But I'll probably eventually get into oils. But right now, I'm happy with my acrylics. And here I'm going to start doing the extra branches that are sticking out of the leaves. It just it makes it look a little bit more realistic, a little bit more 3D. Now, I don't usually use a palette knife for this, and it kind of didn't really work the way I wanted it to, especially down there at the bottom, but it's not a bad tool to use if you want to get straight, little thin lines of paint. Although in the future, I'm probably just going to use one of my paint brushes because I can control it a little bit better. And that's why I switched over right here, so I can get a little bit better in there. But I will fix these messed up lines in a little bit because I have to do a little bit more layering of the yellow. Plus that just kind of covers over them a bit. This is what I'm doing right here. I need a little too much yellow there, but Like I said, when the acrylics dry, they go a little bit more muted. So that bright yellow, when it dries, won't look so bad. It won't stand out as much. And we're gonna get now to the actual highlights for the floating ground soil mess that is kind of part of every single one of these paintings. I start off with like the other paintings, a kind of blend of black and brown. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's brown oxide. It looks a little bit grayer here than I wanted it to, but it turns out okay in the end. And then after this is done, I just go straight to the normal brown oxide color up there at the right-hand corner. Obviously, I got to dry it off because you don't want to blend things together too much. But yeah, I hit it with the lighter paint and had to move it around a little bit because there was too much black. Do my highlights, and it's almost ready to be done. Now with this, you don't need to be like perfectly accurate. I mean, you should keep the colors kind of blended properly, so from lighter to darker, but random makes it look better, honestly. It makes it look a little bit more realistic. I mean, obviously it's a painting, so you know it's not realistic, but it looks more akin to something that might have actually happened if this whole thing was possible. So and here, I just wanted to add a little bit of maybe the impression of grass or some plants growing there, so it looked a little bit less kind of bland. I mean, the more, especially with like just a plain green tree, you want to add a little bit more variety. And here, I'm about to actually do highlights on those stones on the left-hand side. Well, I guess stones or rocks, whatever you want to call them. They didn't really turn out exactly the way I wanted them to, but you could kind of tell what they are, what they were supposed to be. So I'm too late now to fix it. I mean, I could go back, but I don't want to. So I'm gonna continue with the rest of this project. It's been going on for a while, so I want to make sure it's done. And one thing I noticed is I kind of tend to get my hands in the way of the camera, so I'll try to avoid that in the future so I'm not blocking the canvas from view. And here, I'm about signing my name and the date, or yeah, the year. All right. I appreciate the watch. Thank you. And it was here that I realized I messed up. I mean, look at that right there. Oh my God. Yeah, I have to fix this. I signed the wrong date. It is no longer 2019, it is 2020. As of, well, today. This is January 1st. 2019 was a year ago. I mean, come on. But I digress. In my sleep-deprived state, I apologize. Okay, I had like 3 hours of sleep last night. We were up late watching the movie, and yeah. Anyway, so I'm covering it over with a little bit of white, some blue, trying to fade it back in. Luckily, there were no stars down this way, so I don't have to put those back in. Yep. Like I said earlier in the video, I kind of had to go back and fix all the white fade up. Unfortunately, the video ended exactly the way the other ones did, with me having to do exactly this that you're seeing now. But it was a valiant attempt on my part, so I will try to do better in the future. I'll have to remind myself in the future not to sign the wrong date. Slowly, I'm blending this in so you can't really see the other signature. So, yeah. would save myself a lot of trouble if I did it the right way. Well, like I said in some of the other videos, lessons learned. Well, and here we have it. Finally signing it with the right date. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I appreciate it if you'd leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be putting out at least 2 videos a week. The panel project is coming along pretty well. Once that's done, I'm going to move on to other projects. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!